X-Men 97 episode 7 definitely started off with an emotional gut punch. We start off right in the middle of Gambit's funeral. And man, I have to say that Nightcrawler's little eulogy, I think is what it's called, that was really good. I'm loving the writing. Like, just to say, for instance, this episode will remind you of the mature topics and situations that are very well prevalent in this. If this was intended to be a kid's show, I will say, Disney, you failed very hard at making this a kid's show. But hey, I'm actually very happy about that. But Rogue not being there really, to me, really kind of stood up about how much this really hurt her. Like, let's keep in mind, she didn't just lose Gambit. She lost, in her mind at least, Magneto. We learned at the very end of the episode that Magneto is alive, but he's captured by Bastion. And I'll get to him in a little bit, because that's the big villain reveal towards the end. It was hard to tell who he was when he first showed up. But, man, Ross, like General Ross, is it just me? Or is there starting to be a whole lot of Avengers connected things? Like Ross mentions Hulk with the line saying, "Don't worry, boys. Y'all must not remember that this facility was built to contain the Hulk," right before Rogue just like knocks the roof in and gets in there. Like, you're not stopping her, but Ross being aware of the mutants and going, "Aren't you supposed to be the good guys?" That's kind of weird, because Hulk's technically a mutate. You know, his DNA and everything was mutated by the radiation, which gave him the powers. That's not too far different. The only difference from a mutant and a mutate is a mutate gets that mutation later, but a mutant is born with it. So it's a little weird seeing them like this, but that does make sense. They were born with it, not changed, and Hulk is more monstrous, so I guess I kind of get where that is. But Ross has always hated them. He's never been cool with the mutant, with Hulk or any of the things like that. Man, Scott and Jean's conversation, where they're in the, I guess the lower area, like where they've met many times before, like the whole group. Especially a lot more prominent in the original animated series. But he was talking to that guy in the political group, their connection, and you know, he got angry. He slams a hand down the button, and that's where Jean walks in, and you can really tell that he's like pushing the whole, you know, like, yeah, Madeline Pryor, when she was faking being Jean, or believed she was being Jean, she was trying to push him to like leave the X-Men. They'll be fine, but it was nice seeing him being like, "No, it's time to step up. It's time to, we got to give the world hope." And like that's Cyclops. I'm so glad they didn't start having that twist of going back to the old like Fox-verse version where everything emotionally fucks him up and he's not able to sit there and be a part of it, you know. Man, Beast mentoring Mr. Rogers when they showed up and saw everybody helping each other on Genosha. Like, that was an interesting touch. I never would have thought about that. Like, the way that they're connecting things in our real world to this show is great. I'm definitely a big fan of that. But man, I knew we were seeing Captain America's shield, but there was a part of me that's like, nah, they're not bringing Captain America in. But then he shows up, and Rogue was like, "I'm gonna fuck you up." And then it's like, "Oh, you're gonna show me something. But are you with us or against us?" But do you remember when he said that line where he's like, "I'll get my team, and once we're approved, we'll..." Are you talking about the Avengers? Are we about to see the animated MCU? Like, if you remember when my other video where I was talking about how you've got the Iron Man TV show, you got Fantastic Four TV show, you got the X-Men, and you got Spider-Man, and all of these were meant to be a connected universe. You know, in the Spider-Man series, you had them cross over with the X-Men. You had the Fantastic Four show up at the very last bit of that season, the final season of the Spider-Man series. It was the Secret Wars battles. But you also had Captain America show up. And in the middle of the series, towards when Carnage was about to start appearing, you had Iron Man and War Machine there. So, yeah, this was going to be it. And I think we're finally going to see that come to fruition. And I hope so, because that could mean that all of these other shows could get the 97 treatment. Like, look, man, I get Iron Man as a TV show didn't work out really that great back then, and the Fantastic Four wasn't that popular back then in comparison to the X-Men and Spider-Man. But now, everyone knows Iron Man, and it would be a great thing to not kind of forget his death and ignore all of that like sacrifice and everything it meant in the MCU, but still be able to have a show with a lead actor playing Iron Man for a while, bringing back the Spider-Man series and the Fantastic Four. Think about the things we could do, literally having after this, Secret Wars Battle World thing where we have a like kind of soft reboot. Could you picture having the live action animated series of stuff? You have the live action stuff, the animated stuff, as well as you could have a TV series ongoing thing. Like, how they're talking about like stuff like the 6, 8, 10 episode series has just been a failure. They've just been an extended movie. And with Daredevil Born Again, we're actually going to be doing a long extended series. Like, oh man, I would love to see this stuff start crossing over. And if the rumors are actually true about this X-Men crew getting a hold of the rights to be able to make a either live action and like they're behind the new X-Men we're about to get, or at least being able to make like a trilogy of the animated movies. Like, yeah, either give them multiple seasons of this, give them multiple live action movies, or let them control the X-Men, because this has been the best stuff from X-Men. Like, you want to show something to your friends when they think the X-Men from Fox was great? Oh, this will trash it so much better. Just so much better. But man, you can't tell me it wasn't a dick move when she's like, oh, you're not going to be on our side? And just throws his shield into the mountains. Like, dude, he's going to take a while to find that. That wasn't even cool. And her finding Gyrich, like, she's just going on a rampage trying to track all this down and figure out, like, she's on a revenge path. You knew that way before she dropped, not Gyrich, I don't remember the other guy's name right now, but the other guy off the roof before that stuff happens, which I will cover because that stuff gets intense. But man, they start showing all the deaths, like the Morlocks. They showed the picture of the leader of the Morlocks. Like, man, she died. Sebastian Shaw. So probably most, if not all, of the political group of that. Having Madeline survive. And they showed one new survivor. They found another sidekick. And for those of you who didn't recognize her being in full diamond form, that's Emma Frost. She's that blonde chick that walks around in kind of silvery blue dress. You see her in episode 5, before all the shit goes down with destruction and attack on Genosha. But yeah, no, she's been a pretty prominent character. She hasn't been done much in live action. I might be wrong on some of the later Fox ones because I started losing hope for those being that good. I mean, by the third X-Men movie, I was already like, oh God, why are you doing this? Like, first and second one, Logan, some of these other ones, great, but X-Men 3, Last Stand, the Apocalypse one, the Dark Phoenix, like, there's a reason Disney's getting the rights back. Like, let's just say that. But, Madripoor being brought up, that was interesting. I didn't expect that. But that's, again, it's not just an Avengers or Ross. It's now Madripoor. We're having a whole lot of things that are synonymous between the MCU and now this series. Like, Feige's not kidding. This isn't just a part of Marvel stuff they're doing. This is a part of the Marvel multiverse. If you remember in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, when him and America Chavez went through into a animated universe, they literally became animated themselves. Theoretically, these people could come into live action. Now, I doubt it's going to be this exact team because, hey, we probably don't want for the voice to sound different for Wolverine. We're not bringing in some 50-year-old guy. Now, granted, I'm happy we have the original voice actor back, but that guy ain't gonna play Wolverine for 20 years. Let's be realistic. But they could have it to where we find our X-Men team in animation. Now, is that the way I want it? No, I'd rather the X-Men team come from the universe that the Marvels has happened, because that would, there's a lot of weird connections that could be made. Like, you now have Spectrum and seeing her mother as binary, but that's not her mother. So that could end up being an interesting relationship with both of them. You know, she admits it, that she's her mom in the other universe. So that's can be interesting. I liked how they were starting to present Sunspot coming out to his parents. Like, he was scared to do it. Jubilee goes with him, and his parents were like, oh, we know, honey. Like, a mom always knows. And then it's like, now we gotta hide it. And it's like, oh, well, there's the bigotry coming out. That sucks. I didn't want that to happen. But, man, after Rogue took that information from, I think it was Gyrich. Yeah, I think it was Gyrich. And she was trying to find Trask. She lost her shit and had to end up, like, waking up. And that's where Nightcrawler found her. And she started to kind of break. And that's what got me. That was an amazing line. She did not cause Gambit or Magneto to be killed. She helped them live. Like, dude, I broke. Like, tears did fill my eyes on that one. Like, if you have watched the original animated series before this one as, like, a prequel series to this, like, man, that hit you as hard as it did me. And just good. But, like, man, this is our first moment of seeing Bastion just walks up and takes out Gyrich. And for those of you who don't recognize the OZT and or even heard of it before, this is a comic and old animation reference. This is Operation Zero Tolerance. This is a thing that Bastion sets up and is an anti-mutant organization. So this is going to play heavily into it. This is probably connected to the Friends of Humanity that, if you've noticed, we haven't seen since the first 2 episode drop. I mean, we see them get new technology, new upgrades, then we see new Sentinels, and then we don't see anything to episode 5, and now we're on episode 7 and touching it again. We got 3 episodes left. This stuff's all about to start tying together, and I can't wait. But man, when Rogue let Trask go and fell to his death, I was like, shit. That's insane. I honestly didn't expect that of Rogue, but when you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, she's got a lot of reasons to. I can get that. I did not expect him to all of a sudden turn into a Prime Sentinel and all of a sudden start blowing stuff up and being a problem for the whole of X-Men. Like, takes out Rogue in a hit? That's not easy to do. You're all of a sudden top tier villain if you can take Rogue out in one hit. She is not weak. And man, for a half second, I fell for it. More flipped into Quicksilver, and I didn't even notice it. And I was like, oh, Quicksilver's here. Oh, shit, he's going to have revenge for his father. And then, nope, it was, it was Morph. I just, I did not expect that. But I did call it. I said episode 7, we're going to have Cable come back. I just didn't expect for him to open up to his father and be like, hey, we ain't got time for a reunion or catching up, Dad. And I'm like, whoa, this is going to be interesting. And, you know, seeing that Bastion is behind it all, like, okay, that makes sense. Like, that makes sense why Sinister's involved. 100% okay with this now. I was kind of a little weirded out that you're putting Sinister behind everything that's going on when, like, really, how much of it really is to do with him? You know, the Madeline Pryor thing, like, yeah, but that's a him story. The Sentinels thing, I never would have thought of him. But then it shows you Gyrich running from him and saying, I gave you the DNA so you could control Master Mold. That seemed weird. Like, that's not something to hit it. But when Bastion showed up and got involved, yeah. And just for those who don't know, Bastion is some weird, convoluted story that ends up with him being a combination of Master Mold and Nimrod. If you don't remember Nimrod was the super advanced Sentinel from the future, the Days of Future Past episodes from the original animated series where Bishop captured the old Wolverine and a couple other mutants. Yeah, that timeline. That's where Nimrod comes from. And again, he shows up when they were trying to save Xavier from the explosion that Master Mold sent people back in time. I don't remember those two villains, but he sent them back in time. They end up helping them get back around. Like, lots of time travel involved in this. And being that it's the multiverse saga and different multiverses or different timelines, this could get very interesting and being brought in a whole lot. But man, with it ending on the note of Magneto being alive, oh man, I'm so happy because like now we have a Magneto that's trying to fight for good. But you know, they brought up an interesting point with Magneto being alive. How does no one know that Xavier's alive? Why does Sinister think that the X-Men have been lying about it? And what's interesting is that sounds believable, but why would the X-Men be lying to themselves? Why in that conversation in episode 1, I believe? Maybe 2. Where Jean Grey, at the time, Madeline Pryor, and Scott are talking, they're talking about him being dead. There's no doubt about it. That's literally dialogue in the episode. So I really can't wait to figure out what's all this confusion is. But I'm pretty sure Xavier's going to be here next episode, or at least by the 9th. I doubt he'll show up by the 10th. And just that, we're at least getting a couple episodes, if not the remaining 3, with Xavier being back in play. But, you know, until next week and next episode, catch you later.